here we are. It's August already. Time has been flying. Hunting season is just about here. For some people hunting sheep up in the mountains, season's already going. I've seen some pretty cool pictures. The guys with some nice doll. And we're getting excited for archery season here in Alberta. We got elk, mule deer, whitetail, bears are opening up again, moose. You can get an over-the-counter tag for pretty much anything somewhere in this province with archery equipment. And that brings me to something pretty exciting, personally, and Ryan as well. We both just bought brand new Hoyt bows, rocking the Ventum 30. I didn't really think that I wanted to buy a new bow, and I have a Carbon Element, which was like the flagship at the time. And Ryan told me, I got to go in and try these new bows. Now, he had tried, I think it was the RX3 when it came out, and he said that he didn't notice much of a difference between the RX3 and his Spider. And the Spider, I think, is a couple years newer than my Carbon Element. So I didn't figure that it was going to be much of an upgrade either. But this year, he decided he wanted to go and try out the RX5 and the Ventum. They got new cam systems. They've been all the rage. Everybody's been giving them all high praise. And believe it or not, I think that the Ventum is nicer than the RX5 this year. And I'm not alone. There's quite a few people. You're getting the same weight, the same draw cycle. That's like in-hand weight. The deadness in hand is nicer in the Ventum. I found there was a little bit too much vibration in the RX5. And if it was between the RX5 and my Element, I probably would have just stuck with my Element. But this Ventum, holy smokes, does it shoot nice. And I'm grouping up to, down to 4 inches at 70 yards, and that's consistently. So I've never been so confident with archery equipment. I'm super excited to get out and chase elk. For those of you that have listened to previous podcasts, you would know that I have still not stuck an elk with an arrow. That is the one animal in Alberta that I haven't been fortunate enough to make it count. I guess I've had a couple of opportunities, and I'm sure we'll tell those stories on the podcast at some future date. But just haven't been able to seal the deal. Missed a couple nice bull elk. You can actually find that on one of the first podcasts where I talk about buck fever. That's actually a really good listen. I missed an 8x7 bull and a 6x6 bull. And that's one way to put your confidence at an all-time low. So excited to get out there this year. Excited to chase after some animals. Like I said, Ryan got a brand new Ventum. I got the brand new Ventum. We're really excited to get out there and fling some arrows at animals. It's going to be awesome. On that note, a couple of, announcements on my part. I have teamed up with Arachnid Archery, and I will be shooting their arrows this fall. And they've got tons of great product. You can go and look at their website, arachnidarchery.com. They've got 8 different arrows that you can choose from, all the way from your standard diameter down to, I believe, 3 millimeters. Like it's even smaller than a micro-sized diameter arrow. I will be shooting the Phobia, and I also have some neurotoxin that I plan on fletching up. I actually haven't ever gotten into fletching, so this is going to be a new experience for me. But go on over, arachnidarchery.com. Check out all of their arrows. They got some fantastic stuff. A lot of guys that really know what they're talking about, what they're doing. And if you use Slagger20 as a promo code, you will get 20% off your order. So that's pretty cool too. The arrows are already super affordable. To get a discount on top of that is a huge win. So yeah, Slagger20, check that out. I'm also teamed up with Black Widow Innovations, and I'll be shooting their broadheads. They're kind of sister companies. You can tell they're both on the Spider name with Arachnid and Black Widow. But Black Widow Innovations, they've got 3 brand new broadheads out for this fall. Pretty cool. They got a 6-blade Arachnid, which is 1 inch diameter. They're all fixed heads. So 6 blades, It's tool steel blades, tool steel tip. They got the Recluse. It's a 4-blade, 1-inch diameter head, and a Neurotoxin, 3-blade, 1.1 diameter cut. They're all pretty sweet. The difference between those three, aside from Recluse and Neurotoxin being 3 and 4 blade, the ferrule on the Broadhead is actually steel. With the Arachnid, they went with an aluminum because they needed to shed some weight from all the blades. But the cutting surface is incredible. They're extremely tough, extremely sharp. I cannot wait to try them out this fall. I keep thinking spring. It's been since spring since we did one of these podcasts, so I gotta jump out of that mindset real quick. But yeah, so check out all those. They got some pretty incredible broadheads. They also have the PX2 and the Widowmaker. Those are the original heads that they came out with. BlackWidowInnovations.com. You can check out all their stuff. I do not have a promo code for them right now. I can maybe work on that. And then maybe we'll have that to announce for the next podcast. Just looking at my notes here. Oh yeah, so season's close. We're going after all these animals over the counter with a bow. And as far as draws go, all three of us were unsuccessful. So it's going to just be over the counter chasing. We got a couple of cool hunts planned. Ryan and I are planning on doing a trip into the mountains with our bows, just to see what we can find, see what we can get within range on, and maybe make it count. It's going to be a fun experience. It'll be cool to get all of it on video. Yeah, that's the goal. And for those of you that don't know, you go over to YouTube and check out Slager Outdoors. Slager Outdoors is where we put all of our hunting videos. You're going to get to see some brand new content. We're still editing up some old content. Yeah, as far as new content goes, we've got the bear that I shot this spring. Between this podcast and the last podcast, a really nice bear. He was actually just shy of Pope and Young, and shot him on, I think it was like my third sit in the stand. But a really nice bear. Came in, he was kind of leery of the surroundings because of the scent that was in there. We weren't really expecting to see or shoot a bear, just because some of the baits that we had been absolutely pounded, smashed, and empty. And then we go into this one and it was like pretty much full. So I don't know if it was just because of different area and the bears just hadn't come into it yet, but we had like upwards of 20 bears on one bait, and then this one here, I think we had like 4. So to go in there and sit, and we weren't really expecting anything, and at the very last possible second, the last little bit of camera light, this nice boar came in, circled the bait, gave me a perfect broadside shot, and smashed it right through the boiler room, and I don't think he even ran 30 yards. It was about as textbook as it could be, and pretty excited. I got to have my younger cousin Owen. He came out and videotaped and helped out with baiting, so that was pretty exciting as well. My dad, Josh, he killed 2 bears of a lifetime this past spring. And I'm talking like bears of a lifetime, of many lifetimes. I don't really expect to ever get a shot at a bear this big, and it's kind of intimidating because we go around, we hunt these areas with a bow. You're not allowed to carry a sidearm in Canada. We don't usually pack a shotgun or anything like that just because of the weight, and you're usually in a hurry. And these bears are roaming around down there with us, and we don't even know it. But super cool. 2 really big bears. Both of them are on camera. He managed to get one with his brand new crossbow, and I know that was something he was pretty excited about. I don't even, like, you could say it was skill. I mean, we know where to put our baits. We've baited in the area for a few years. There's consistent bears, and I think maybe a little bit of right place at the right time on the second big boar that he shot. just came in looking for ladies, and just so happened to be sitting there. Ryan and I had the opportunity to sit at that stand, and we decided to go and sit at a different location just because we thought we'd see better numbers. We didn't see hardly any bears that night, and then get a picture, and my dad's like, yeah, just smashed another giant. So it's pretty cool, pretty exciting. We had to go and help him take it out, and he died in a horrible spot, so we had to skin it and carry the hide out. Made for some good pictures, some good video, and very excited to get that all fixed up and put on YouTube for everybody to see as well. As far as other hunting plans go for this fall, I know I'm going to try my very best. I know time permitting and work permitting, you don't always get the opportunity to go out and chase stuff with a bow and make it count. And I'm the type of person that likes to fill some tags by the end of the year. But I'm going to try, and I know Ryan is going to be this way too because he was like this last year. But we would both like to really try and pursue all of our tags with a bow. And Ryan had a year to remember last year. I think he shot 2 bears with his bow, a moose. I think he shot an elk as well. Really nice whitetail buck, and the only animal he really couldn't make it connect on was mule deer. And I sat with him a couple of times. He missed a really nice mule deer buck, and then the one day he was getting set up into his stand, pulling his bow up the tree, noticed a big buck running through the bush, and he grabbed the gun and shot it with the gun. I guess the killer instinct kicked in. He could tell the story much better than I could, but we do like to fill tags, and if it comes down to it, I guess we'll be breaking out the guns. I know as far as my dad goes, he doesn't really care. He likes to shoot things with a gun. He doesn't have much as far as prejudice between bow and rifle. As you can see in the latest video that dropped on Slager Outdoors, Ryan, my dad, and Spencer all went down to Alabama. I was supposed to go on that hunt, and I was pretty bummed that it didn't manage to happen. But I guess that's just one of those things. We're going to plan to do it again next time. But yeah, my dad down there, Ryan and Spencer are trying to shoot stuff with a bow. My dad was like, no, I don't think so. Well, let's just do it with a gun. And he ended up shooting a really, really nice buck. So you can go check that one out. It's on the YouTube channel. Another thing, I guess, go check out Instagram and Facebook at Slager Outdoors. That would be a good way to keep up on any updates, see any recent kills, any other big news, if we have big news. And that'd be a good way to know all of that. So go give that a follow or a like or however it works on each platform. If you want to follow me and on the podcast here at On the Blood Trail, it's on Facebook as well as Instagram. So a topic for today's podcast. This is totally off the cusp. I didn't really plan on talking about much of anything other than just an update on how things were going. But since I'm now teamed up with Black Widow Innovations and their Broadheads, I figure we might as well talk about fixed blades and expandable heads, because this is the never-ending debate, and it's not just between two different guys. It'll be between one guy and himself. It'll be between spring bear hunting season and fall hunting season, or it'll be within the same season. I know that that's been the case for me. I've argued it with Ryan. I've argued it with my dad. I've argued it with myself. And I'm sure I've argued it with my fair share of guys online. But it really comes down to a number of things. Now, I always used to shoot expandable heads. My thing with expandables is I want something that flies as true as my field points, and that's why I would choose to go with expandables. Now, that said, I think there's a lot of expandable broadheads on the market that are not worth shooting. The stuff that is shooting massive sized cutting diameters, guys will use it. Yeah, maybe it's fantastic on a deer or something else that's small game, but where we're hunting for moose and elk, it's totally impractical to have a 2-inch cut blade. Even like something over 1.5 inches, I find it could be too much. And the reason for that is that, like a deer, you can hit a deer in the shoulder, you can hit a deer in the ribs, and your arrow has enough kinetic energy to probably just blast right through them. Now, with an expandable, what's going to happen is it's going to hit that rib or smash that shoulder, and you're going to get very, very limited penetration. And that's just because your kinetic energy comes out of the broadhead when it opens. So you might get one lung, you might get one lung and a bit of the second lung, but that's just the reality of it. Unless you get an absolute perfect situation where you blast through between two ribs and through two ribs on the offside, then you might get a pass through. But the chances of that are not always very high, and especially on an animal like an elk or a moose. Now, for fixed blade heads, I just said that I wanted to have heads that shoot true, like my field points. I have found if you use something that's too big and outrageous, sometimes what you'll get is your broadhead will actually hydroplane. And I didn't really know what that meant until I had bought some of G5's Montex, and I shot and watched my arrow do a hard spiral and hook down into the left and hit the target with every shot that I took. Aiming for the dead center, I could go and shoot my mechanical heads, and they would shoot true, and then I would shoot those, and it would be down into the left. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, why don't you just go on broadhead tune? Well, for me, I'm kind of an archery illiterate. I'm learning a lot more on the topic as of late, but I had no idea what tuning was. I'm always the type of person where you go down to the local archery shop and you say, hey, I need arrows or I need broadheads. We're all guilty of it, but the guys in the archery shop most of the time would be like, oh yeah, well, this is what's the leading technology, or this is what's leading the market right now. And so I'd be like, okay, well, right on, sign me up. I'll take a dozen of those arrows and 2 packs of those broadheads. Then I get out into the field and just kind of trust that they would work, you know. And it's not a good mindset to have, especially now that I know better, but it's the reality of a lot of people. And that's how most people go out and hunt. They don't have time to do all the research, and they're occupied with other things. So trying to learn a little bit more about it. Now, as far as the Black Widow broadheads go, they're about as true flying as any fixed blade on the market, even better than most. Like I said, the Montex, I had a horrible time with them trying to get them to the center. And I'm the kind of person, too, where I like to have my field points and broadheads fly both towards the bullseye, because otherwise I feel like it throws my game off a little bit. I even talked to somebody else not too long ago, and they said that they had the same problem with the Montex, where it didn't matter what bow they shot, they always had the Montex hit to the left. So now that might just be for a couple of people. Some people might pull the trigger and they just go dead center every time. But you got to play around with a couple of different ones. And nowadays it's getting so difficult because all these broadheads are so expensive, which is another great thing about the Black Widow lineup, is that they're really affordable. So if you want to try out 2 different kinds, it's almost the equivalent of buying, I'd say you could probably buy 3 packs for the price of 2 anywhere else. And so that's always a good way to do things. You can kind of switch it up. It's important to shoot with your broadheads more often than not. And I know I'm trying to do that more. I always try to shoot the field points just because you don't have to worry about destroying your targets, especially with these new 6-blade broadheads. It's like blowing a slug through your foam target, and it wears them out pretty quick. But it's going to do incredible damage on a deer. And the plan is to show you guys just exactly how much damage that is this fall. Now, I used to shoot the expandables all the time. And I kind of had started with fixed heads. I got away from it because I must have changed a couple of items with my bow and how I was shooting. And my fixed heads just weren't flying like I wanted them to. I switched over to these expandable heads. I was shooting Grim Reaper for quite a while, and I killed, I think I killed 1 deer with it. It's crazy. Not a whole lot of blood with the Grim Reaper, but I've used also what used to be called a rocket. They're 3-blade broadheads. I think they're a 1-inch cut or 7/8 cut. The most comparable to that now on the market, I think, is called SWAT. But I used to use those ones, and I killed a wolf with that. I pretty sure I killed a few other animals as well. I'd have to go back and look exactly. The wolf is just off the top of my head, and it did incredible. Now, having said that, with the penetration and the big cut and all that, with these new Black Widow heads, they're all about a 1 inch cut up to, I think the Widowmakers are 1.25 inches, which is really nice. It's small. It's not going to have too much wind drift or drag. It's going to fly as good as any other fixed head out there. And I also like the idea that you don't have to worry about all of your energy coming out of your arrow because your broadhead is trying to function and open. Now, I understand that that could be deadly, but if your broadhead is already in peak formation by the time it reaches your animal, you're going to get maximum damage every single time. That also means that you could smash off of a rib or off the back of the shoulder blade, and it's got all this energy still that you didn't lose because it's not expandable, and it's going to propel that arrow even deeper or further into the animal. And that could lead to more internal damage, and your animal will go down quicker. It should. The big deciding factor for why I went from the expandable heads that I was using to fixed heads was that I had a really, really poor experience shooting an animal with an expandable head. And not only that, I remember my brother shot a deer with a Grim Reaper. It was a mule deer doe. He shot her at 50 yards. His arrow smashed clean through one of the ribs and passed right through the deer. This deer took off and ran like 300 yards, all within sight, and then it piled up and fell over. We didn't hardly have much of a blood trail to follow, and had we not seen the deer go down, it probably would have been a difficult recovery. So it's always good to know where your animal's running, but if you can't get a blood trail, it makes you feel sometimes like your broadhead or your equipment somewhere didn't perform to what it should. And using the same broadhead, I shot a bear, and the bear was a little bit quartering to. I rushed the shot a little bit more than I wanted to. Sometimes that happens. If you hunt long enough, you're going to find yourself in situations where you wish that you would have did something differently. And archery is one of those things where if the conditions aren't 100% in your favor, you're going to mess up. And unfortunately, that happened with me on this bear. The shot was a little bit further back than I wanted. He was quartering to. I figured I got maybe part of a lung, liver for sure. And a year prior, no, I guess it'd be more than a year and a half prior, I shot a whitetail buck with my bow. Same broadhead. Arrow blew clean through him both sides. The buck ran like 40 yards and piled up. Found him. Shot this bear. The arrow, I don't think I got maybe half of the arrow as far as penetration, maybe a little bit more, but I expected it to sink right through the bear. And a lot of people will promote their broadheads on bear pictures because bears are usually known to be thinner skinned animals. Broadheads perform a lot better on them, yada yada. And I chased this bear for quite a ways, found where he had bedded up the night before. He bled a whole bunch, but only when he was sitting in one spot. The blood trail was not that great, and ultimately could not find the bear. Couldn't make it happen, couldn't take him home. And if you're a bow hunter, there's about no worse feeling in the world than not coming home with an animal that you made a shot on. Even if you miss, a clean miss, it's about one of the most dejecting things ever. With archery hunting, you go through the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. I don't care who you are. I don't care how long you've been doing it. You could be doing it for 2 years. You could be bow hunting for 50 years. It'll still bring you to that highest peak moment and the lowest moment possible. And that's just how bow hunting is. And that's why we live for it. You strive to be the best. You strive to make everything go right in that situation so you can experience taking home an animal of a lifetime. And every animal with a bow is a trophy. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a doe, it can be a spike buck, it can be a 190. They're all trophy level animals. After this poor experience with mechanical heads on this bear, I decided to make the change to a fixed blade head. And I know had I been shooting a fixed blade head, it wouldn't have been the same issue on this bear, because three blades opening up on an animal, it takes away a lot of the kinetic energy, like I explained before. And I felt like if I would have shot this animal with a fixed head, it would have drove further down in there, and there's no chance of your blades closing back up while it's inside that animal between the point of impact and the arrow falling out. And it'll do more damage if it's wide open and slicing around in there. As gory as it sounds, that's just the brutal truth of it. And if you came close to hitting an organ but didn't, you still have a chance of your arrow nicking it and giving you that much more of a chance for an animal to be coming home with you. So I decided to make the switch to fixed blade broadheads. That's the short story long. And Black Widow Innovations, incredible stuff. I would highly recommend them. Go check them out. They are some of the most deadly broadheads ever. If I had to pick a brand that they'd be comparable to looks-wise or style-wise, I'd say maybe the QAD Exodus heads. I've heard from other people that they fly very similar to those heads. I've never shot QAD, but I know I'm absolutely in love with these broadheads. This fall, I will be shooting. I want to shoot a deer with the arachnid head, but if I'm out in elk country and I have a deer tag in my pocket, I'll probably be shooting the 4-blade recluse. I just think a smaller head works better for longer distance. That's the other part of it too. At a longer distance, your mechanical heads are going to have a lot less energy on impact, and your fixed heads are going to just keep soaring. But that's going to pretty well wrap it up for this podcast. Like I said, I just wanted to kind of give an update on how things are going. It's going to be a very busy next, I'd say, couple of months. We're going to try and get in and do a few more of these. The plan is to get out there for archery season, do as much damage as possible, probably bow hunt into gun season, because we're suckers for punishment, and we love the thrill, we love the adventure, we love the challenge. But like I said before, if it comes down to it, probably going to break out the boomstick and reach out there and touch something. I know we're going to try and get out a couple of our younger family members, see if we can get them some animals. Yeah, it's going to be a good time. Keep following Slager Outdoors on Instagram, Facebook. Follow us on our YouTube channel, or I guess subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. You can subscribe to On the Blood Trail on YouTube. Follow at On the Blood Trail on Instagram, Twitter. You're going to get all your quickest updates on there, I promise. We're a lot more active on there than we are some of our other stuff like this podcast. But like I said, we're gonna get to it a little bit more often here. Again, arachnidarchery.com, Slager20 for your promo code. I'm shooting the phobias this year. They're 5mm arrows. The neurotoxin are standard 6mm, I believe. They got 4mm arrows, 3mm arrows. So if you want to do some serious reach out there and touch the animal, touch the target, I guess, they'd be incredible for target arrows. Check them out. They got pretty much everything you can think of. Carbon weave, just straight carbon. It's some really cool stuff. Go check it out. Like I said, Slager20 for 20% off. And BlackWidowInnovations.com for broadheads. Recluse, arachnid, neurotoxin. Those are the new ones for the lineup this year. Or you can go with Old Faithful, the PX2, and the Widowmaker. But yeah, that wraps it up. Get out there, do some practicing with your broadheads, do some tuning. I'm still learning a little bit on the tuning. Just get the reps in, get ready for hunting season. Put yourself in the best possible situation that you can be for when that animal of a lifetime is within range and you're at full draw. And yeah, that wraps it up. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you on the next one soon, hopefully.